Good evening, everyone. I'm calling the January 16th, 2025 meeting of the Credit River Planning Commission to order. Would everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first item on the agenda this evening is to approve or amend the agenda. All commission members have received a copy of tonight's agenda, which includes two public hearings, one on administrative citations ordinance and a request for a variance at 7998 Crestview Lane. Under general business, we have a public hearing memo preamble language that's being proposed and draft survey questions for a city park and trail assessment. Does anyone want to add or amend anything to tonight's agenda? Seeing no additions, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
I've got a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right. We will go to our first, our next item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. And those items on the planning commission agenda, which are considered routine or non-controversial, are part of the consent agenda. Unless a planning commission member specifically requests that an item on the consent agenda be removed and considered separately, these items on the consent agenda are considered under one motion, second, and vote. Any item removed from the consent agenda shall be placed at the end of general business. We have one item on tonight's consent agenda, which is the meeting minutes from the October 17th, 2024 Planning Commission meeting. Can I get a motion to approve or amend the consent agenda?
I'll motion to approve it.
I have a motion to approve. Any second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. All right. We'll move on tonight to public hearings, our third item on the agenda, and there are two, as I mentioned. The first one relates to a proposed ordinance on administrative citations. Commission members have received the following items: a staff memo dated November 7th, 2024, a letter from City Attorney Pete McHale dated June 4th, 2024, draft copy of the ordinance, and draft copy of the fine schedule. Before I open the public hearing, I'd like city staff to summarize the ordinance and fine schedule.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the commission, in your packet, as noted by the chair, is the proposed fine schedule for your administrative fines process. Recall in December, the commission took up the matter of considering the philosophy and the background of administrative fine process, and ultimately found them to be favorable, and the council will be taking up that as well. One additional thing that we need to do is have a public hearing on the fees themselves, or the fines themselves. Apologize for them to be duplicated in your packet, but now you're sure you're read them, cover to cover. But it's relatively straightforward. The intent or approach has not changed, but now you see the scale of what those penalties are. In terms of the numbers of violations, whether it's a first offense being $100 and second and third 200, 400, a fourth violation being 800, and subsequent violations being 1,000. There are some additional increases for if they are matters of an emergency or endanger life or create an unsafe condition, being a $200 addition. So this is the penalty structure, and the city's obligated to have a public hearing on them, and is the ultimate tool that the city would use to seek compliance. Are these dollar penalties adequate? Hard to say. Probably. And most people, I think, do want to comply with the rules, and sometimes they just need a little bit of a goose. And you're not trying to it's not a revenue stream for the city, but it's just enough to try to get people to to pay attention. If they don't pay this, well, then at the end of the day, after you go through the due process as outlined in the ordinance, then it's can be affixed to their property taxes. So it'll come around one way or another. So anyway, that's, I think, the summary, and I would defer to Claire or Matt if they had any other thoughts or. So yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. I will now open up the public hearing related to the ordinance, proposed ordinance and fee schedule. This is the time for residents to provide comments pertaining to this matter. Have we received any written comments?
I have not. Nope.
All right. Are there any residents present tonight who would like to comment on this proposed ordinance and fine structure? Any residents wishing to comment? Go ahead. If you wouldn't mind stating your name and address for the record. Thank you for turning the mic on.
Hi, Bill Margaret, 7690 Crestview. When it says within 12 months of the first, you can have multiple violations within the first 12 months, right?
Absolutely.
And it doesn't start over again after the 12 months are up. You start out being the first violation again, or it just continues?
It would continuous, but hopefully, I mean,
So do you take it out after all subsequent violations? Do you take that out? Take out that parenthesis?
I think you could. The other challenge with it is, and we can check with the city attorney, so if there's a fusion, but another thing that could happen is they could fix the violation and then reviolate.
Right.
So how do you balance those things?
Let's say you have a situation where they violate and for 2 years they don't correct it. What would they be fined?
They would be fined, I think, the $100 until we call them out on it. It's the first notice.
Okay.
So
If this is
there's-
pretty standard, I'm okay with it. I just didn't quite understand the parentheses, what that actually,
maybe you can show me, you know, if it's a cleanup issue. Do that, but
okay,
if somebody's parked a bus on the side of their house.
for the last 5 years.
Yeah, then, and we go, and the city hasn't sent any notices, we would let them know, hey, this is a violation. And if they don't address it, it would probably be the first violation.
Yeah. And we could put in the letter saying you have 30 days to correct this, and then there would be a second violation if we sent out another letter.
Basically. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on the matter this evening? Anyone else? All right. Given that we have no other residents here tonight who'd like to make a statement or ask questions, may I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Move that we close the public hearing.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Do any planning commission members have questions, comments, concerns that they want to share or address regarding the proposed ordinance and fee schedule?
Just one question, that I can't remember, that was proposed to me. I got a phone call yesterday. On the general rules of administrative fine system, #1, each day a violation exists constitutes a separate offense. What does that?
Technically, if it's noticed and the city sends a letter.
Here, turn on your.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's a literal interpretation of this, and then there's the practical interpretation of this. So if somebody, again, it can depend on the issue. Let's just say somebody has a tent in their front yard. I'm just throwing this out as an idea from an enforcement standpoint. They violate the ordinance. We send them a letter. They don't take it down. Is the city going to be adding $100 a day to these? I would argue probably wouldn't be able to do that in some circumstances. But But you could, if it's a meritorious claim, we would defer to the city attorney. What we're trying to accomplish is compliance. And if we start stacking these, it can become more complicated. But there might be some cases where we've been through a number of iterations of asking for correction, asking for correction. Well, they don't do it, don't do it. Now we're going to stand on them in the each day constituting a separate offense. We would be working with the city attorney to really use that final tool, I would argue. But it could.
Okay.
I think the one question or, just for reference that I had in addition to that was, this is pretty comparable, I would guess, to other communities. So that it's fairly in line. And, as you stated, that this isn't necessarily a revenue stream, but it may be attention getting for someone who,
Absolutely.
it hasn't taken corrective action.
No. And I know if it got into really heavy, the conversation, maybe now you're starting to bring in attorneys involved and most of the time you're trying to come to a settlement situation where you're correcting it, it's addressed, and we're putting it away. And it's the nature of these things. So.
Are there any other questions from the planning commission members?
No, I mean, I think I get this is just a nudge to get them where you want them to go, but I guess, the $200 in addition, I mean, the significant and danger thing we talked about before, but just for clarity, the 200 additional to base fine amount total not to exceed 1,000. Just for my own clarity, the 1,000 isn't referred to the fines above that line. It's this, so it's 5 times the 200 on top of whatever other fines.
That would be my reading of it as well.
Okay. All right. What, I mean, just a absurdity a little bit, but someone's got 20 employees showing up at their house every day. They're making miraculously $5 million a year in revenue. Yeah, you never know what they're doing in there.
In light of the cannabis world, right?
There we go.
Plenty of time for that. But I mean, is this, I mean, I know what you're just trying to nudge them, but I mean, they might just say, I can pay this fine forever.
Well, that would be the first step. And this doesn't void the city's alternative remedies.
Okay.
Where we're in civil litigation or where we'll bring out the heavy guns, so to speak, and
Okay, this is just to get them going.
get them going.
Fair enough.
Any other questions? All right, if there are no other questions, can I get a motion?
Motion to approve. Is that what we're looking for?
Approve recommending to the council.
Yes, motion to approve recommending the fine schedule to the council.
And do we need to take action also on the ordinance itself? or-
No, you've already done that.
That's what I thought. Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposition, the motion carries. Our second public hearing tonight is related to a request for a variance at 7998 Crestview Lane. Commission members have received a staff report dated January 10th, 2025. That includes background, staff recommendation, and findings of fact, and a copy of the application, including property survey and garage expansion floor plan. Staff, would you like to walk through the application with us?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commission members. So as stated by the chair, this is a variance application for 7998 Crestview Lane. This is for a front yard setback variance. I know that it looks like it could be a side yard, but the Meadowview Boulevard on the eastern property line is technically public right of way at this time, therefore making it a corner lot and has to abide by the front yard setback requirements, which is 67 feet. So it's at 60 point, I don't know what the site plan says, 60 point, I think 5. So they're about 7 feet off from that requirement. There was some staff discussion as well as this was brought to the city council when the rear yard setback was brought forward from your guys' recommendation of approval due to that drainage and utility easement. It was discussed at that meeting that whether or not the road is currently paved, it is platted, et cetera. So city attorney and city council recommended that the applicant apply for this second variance just so that everything's cleaned up on the property for their own good of the title. Same with the city. We've been working with them on combining the lots as well to meet the other, the size of the building that was brought up the last one, but also when variances come through, we really try and keep them filed separately, looking on their own lens, because they all have to meet that practical difficulty criteria, which staff is recommending approval for this variance and does find that that drainage and utility easement that exists pretty much along that whole middle part of the parcel does affect the placement of this for this front side yard setback, and is recommending recommending approval with the findings of fact that is stated in the staff report. And I'm happy to answer any additional questions you may have.
Okay. Is the applicant here this evening? Okay. Okay, I'll now open up the public hearing related to this request for a variance. This is the time for residents to provide comments pertaining to this this application. Staff, were there any written comments pertaining to this request?
We did not receive any.
Okay.
Calls are written.
Yeah, we received, Claire's 100% right. We receive, sometimes the city receives unsigned, unknown comments. I don't know what the city's policy is in the past. When people come to the council meeting or to this organization, you ask them to state their name, identify who they are, and so we enter into the record. I received one of those late this afternoon, just so,
Okay.
and I don't find that to be something of substance. I can't enter into the record because I don't know who sent it. So I'm happy to share it with you, but I would not call it as material until they say their name.
Yep.
So.
Okay. All right. Are there any residents present this evening who would like to comment? Any residents wishing to comment? All right, seeing none. May I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Move that we close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. Are there any questions that the planning commission members have?
I'm kind of curious what the unofficial comment was.
Well, yeah, that would be detracting from the purpose of it.
So,
But as, I apologize, but just
no,
wanted
that's,
for the chair had mentioned what did we do with comments like that? People can say all kinds of things, and if council and you folks would not allow somebody to come up to this podium and not identify themselves.
that's understandable.
So I would tell you. Somebody did a Data Paralysis Act, you can have an email.
There you go.
Fair enough.
I'm just wondering, this is not totally on this topic. Is that something we should add to the public hearing notices? That if they are going to, is that something we should add to the public hearing notices? You know, at the bottom, we say, please contact by phone call or this email and provide your name and address when providing your comment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
It
I'm just-
seemed fair
Yeah.
that we have to tell folks that's
I know,
fine, but
but if they haven't come to a meeting, they
Yeah.
might not know they need to
yeah,
state their name and address.
it can't hurt to put it on there.
Okay. That's all I have.
I mean, people can throw all kinds of haymakers out there.
Great.
That's true.
Pro or con.
True.
And if you're not gonna say who you are,
Right.
And part of this body's, responsibility is the, quasi judicial function, and testimony would not be allowed without
that's a
without
really
it.
good point.
So,
I don't think a judge would allow that, or,
I appreciate that clarification and that thought about, the notice. Do any planning commission members happen to have questions about this particular request?
Seems pretty straightforward.
My only question is, currently that's a stub in
Mhm.
terms of the road, but do we have senses with interconnectivity? What the likely possibility would be in the future for expansion?
So the property behind Crestview Estates is fairly large in acreage and I think, could develop into another single family home development at some point in the future. I know the city engineer brought that up when we were discussing some of this terminology of the road and it's not paved, et cetera. And so that was some of the concern, I think, with some of city staff that, yeah, it may pave one day, but there was also the argument that if it doesn't, it might always stay unpaved, could become a trail. It's out there what it could be now in terms of when you're looking at corner lots and why they typically have the same side yard setback as the front yard. It's for a visibility triangle.
Mhm.
7 feet isn't going to greatly affect that when it comes to safety, especially when you're already should be driving slowly through a residential neighborhood. But
And that was
Yeah.
gonna be, you just took my next question right out of my
Mhm.
mouth, so thank you for anticipating that. It's really the only one that I had. Anybody else have any questions? Okay. If there are no other questions, may I get a motion on this request for a variance at 7990 Crestview Lane?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. I've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Our next item on the agenda under general business is item 4.1, the public hearing memo considering preamble language. Commission members have received the following document related to this item, which includes the staff memo from city planner Matt Holsworth. At this time, I'd invite city staff to walk us through this item and the requested action.
Good evening, planning commission members. So I was watching the planning commission meeting held on 11/13/24. And I noticed that the chair reads a brief preamble that outlines the public hearing process. And perhaps such reading here at Credit River may also help community members understand what the anticipated procedure includes. Perhaps Credit River could consider adopting it in its own processes. The procedure goes specifically that the planning commission chair would begin with a review of the public hearing procedure statement at the commencement of the public hearing section of the agenda. And kind of an example would be the following. Dear planning commission members or dear members of the public, the following protocols that I am about to read are the anticipated steps to be followed by the planning commission to effectively consider, discuss, and possibly act on matters brought before us for consideration and action under the required public hearings. So those steps would generally look like: number one, staff will present a project summary and staff report and findings to the planning commission. The planning commission may then have questions for staff on the project and report. The application shall then have the opportunity to address commission about the project. The commission may have questions for the applicant. Number three, the planning commission chair shall open then open the floor to the public comment. Hopefully, please limiting the comments to about 3 to 5 minutes. The public hearing will then be closed by the planning commission, and thereafter the commission may hold a discussion and consider possible action. This venue serves as the primary opportunity for the public to address a scheduled application, proposal, or issue. Therefore, it is important to offer relevant comments and input to the planning commission. And then finally, the planning commission does not hold the authority to approve or deny any given application, as it is a recommending entity only. The planning commission will forward its findings to the council for its final decision.
Thank you. This got shared with me in terms of the video from Prior Lake,
Mhm.
and when I had a chance to take a look at it, in talking with Matt, with the administrator and, Mayor, I thought this made a lot of sense. I think there's some opportunity to clarify what our responsibilities and roles are, as well as just making sure that the public has ample opportunity to understand and appreciate where they have the opportunity to give input and have it be the most effective. And that be, is really at the public hearing stage so often. So from that perspective, I appreciate the work that you've done to put this together. Are there other thoughts that planning commission members have or city staff? Is there anything that you would like to share about what the role for this could be, or any additional context for what you see in working with other?
I thought it was great, a great idea. Maybe as people think about your last meeting,
Mhm.
get folks here, and if somebody would read this in the preamble, well, what can people expect is gonna happen in the next half hour? Well, here's what's gonna kind of happen. And give somebody what they can think about their timeline and what they should say and why it's important.
Mhm.
And there were several community members that popped by our desks before to kind of ask that question.
Right.
So I think that this is a great idea to add into. Mhm.
Planner Stickler, are you seeing this in other communities as well? For context setting?
My other communities don't have this, but I would say there are times where it would have been very helpful. A lot of people, they get a letter in the mail, they're a neighbor and they don't know they don't know. And even applicants don't know. And we have the pre-application meetings, I mean, it's not a common process to go through. So I think this is good. There's some communities have one that's maybe a little shorter, but I don't think that this is an issue by any means of the length.
It's pretty sustained.
Yeah.
Administrator Johnson, any experience in other communities where something like this has been put in place?
I've not, this is a new one for me. And I think we can only spoon feed people so much until they make the effort to engage and think and talk to each other. You can only tell them kind of what's coming at them, and we're trying to be transparent.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah.
I would encourage you to do something similar.
Yeah, I know that there's been some difficulty with applications we've had that aren't public hearings that folks thought they would have a
Right.
chance to speak on. And that's not technically the way meetings are run, unless the applicant is called upon to discuss. And even so, usually when it goes to council, unless they speak during public forum, likely the public doesn't get another chance to speak. So to have that, I think that last line after the bullets is really important for folks to understand. Again, they can always talk during open forum at a city council meeting, anybody can, but yeah.
Commission members, any thoughts on your ends?
That's a good idea.
I think it's good. I mean, I wouldn't even mind a little more, being more specific, right? You don't get to get up there 12 times. So, I got a little aggressive last meeting.
There was intense interest. I think we erred on the side of making sure everybody had the chance to speak, which I think is important.
Yeah.
If it feels like there are situations where maybe it needs to be amended, we can always look at that. I don't think we're setting ourselves into, a position where we can't revise it at a later date.
Sure. Sure. But I mean, even just the planning commission chair shall open the floor to public comment. Each individual wishing to make a comment must, come to the podium, state their name and address. That might slow people down. I mean, you just don't want an open cry system, right? Where people are
True.
fighting each other in aisles.
And you have to use your gavel.
I prefer not to have that. But yeah, making sure that people know that they need to get up and state their name and address might be something to include as well. That is, we typically remind them when they get up and make public comment, but it can't hurt to set that expectation if it feels valuable.
If there's three public comment sections in the evening, do you read it once or before each one?
Good question.
You know, I think Prior Lake took the standpoint of just doing it once at the beginning of the meeting. And, you know, noting that it may apply to, you know, each public hearing.
Great.
So from that standpoint, I don't think we're gonna add length to meeting greatly by reciting it once. We can always remind people that, you know, the rules apply, for lack of a better way to put it, or rules of decorum. So
I think it's great.
I do too. I think in the interest of transparency, this is something that really helps people understand where they can engage and how. And from that perspective, that can only help them be active, engaged citizens. So nice work.
Thank you, Matt.
All right. I don't think we need to take formal action on this particular item unless city staff is asking us to do so. Yes, absolutely.
I'm sorry. I always like when a council or commission takes a little action. It's just good for our record. And if I would argue, if you folks are just comfortable with it, just make a motion and we'll get it on the record. And then what we'll try to remember to do is how do we, and we'll talk about this with Matt. And so when the next public hearing comes around, how do we make sure that that's part of the process? I mean, we all are trying to think about the issues.
Mhm.
We also have to think about the process, and it'll be our job to try to remember to do that and slide you a form and or have it there for you. So yeah, so if you guys are cool with it, that'd be a short motion, and a blessing would be wonderful for us.
Perfect. Can I get a motion to adopt this practice?
Make a motion to approve the practice to provide a short, informative preamble statement that the commission chair will read at the commencement of each public hearing section of the agenda.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. All right. Our last item for consideration on tonight's agenda is item 4.2. That is the draft questions for the Park and Trails Assessment. And commission members have received a memo from MSA Professional Services with draft questions for the Parks and Trails Assessment staff. I invite you to take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. As we discussed in our December meeting, we had kind of just the overview of the Parks and Trails Assessment project that will be commencing, and the Planning Commission will serve as our guidance committee as we move through this process to kind of start looking at the existing conditions of Credit Rivers Parks, getting some public feedback about them, and then building more of a comprehensive parks assessment for use of the city, the residents, and I think we had thrown a memo in there that Matt had put together about park dedication fees, and then some of the legalities of that. The city has to have supporting documentation for Parks and Recreation to increase those fees. So the first step, of course, is gathering public input from your residents. I know that the visioning survey just got completed, so I'm been thinking through when the best timeline to not give people survey fatigue is. But this is the first step. We as staff can't do much without hearing from you all who are living, utilizing these amenities in your community and looking for additional connections or park facilities. So I just wanted to bring forward some draft survey questions for your review and comment for discussion tonight. And if take all of that input back, come with a new draft, and then come with more of a definitive output plan, working with Amy and other groups within the city on how we're going to spread the word to get this going on the citizen side of things. And of course, as we've said before, we want residents input on this. So I know we don't normally have resident input during a planning commission meeting, but I would welcome that during this agenda section. I'm happy to run through each one, or if anybody saw something when they reviewed their packets that they want to bring forward, that works for me as well. But we're really just trying to get kind of that overview vision of the parks right now, what
Mhm.
people are using, what they're missing that maybe they're using in Prior Lake or
Mhm.
traveling to use that they would love to see here. And some of the maintenance of those existing facilities. That's
Yeah.
when we do these assessments, kind of where we start, so.
Yeah. One question that popped out to me.
Yeah.
Was, as I looked at the first question in particular was just some context setting.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if we would want to think about a distinction between Three Rivers Parks
Sure.
and city parks.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think for a lot of us, the neighborhood parks do come to mind,
Mhm.
but maybe the first frame of reference would be Murphy, Hanrahan, or Cleary Lake.
Right.
And so,
Absolutely.
just from the standpoint that, the city has, responsibility for, city parks
Mhm.
and, as a contributor in some way to, Three Rivers Park District.
Mhm.
And we happen to be home to those, it might just be helpful
Yeah.
to let people know. That was one of the main things that came to my mind. What came to mind for commission members or?
I would just add, I think that absolutely for number one, but I wanted to point out that I kept number two general, because if we can get that user data that, okay, well, they are utilizing more of the regional parks, that's where they're going, which might be the case. I'm not sure. I use them as a resident of one of the Three Rivers counties. I come down and hike here all the time. So I think user data and where people are going is important for number two. So
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't distinguish on that one, but 100% for number one. I totally makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So we're excluding Murphy and Cleary from our definition of city parks, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
We could, yeah, because I think it distinguished. If we needed to, we could put in parentheses or something, parks in Credit River, including Three Rivers,
Yeah.
if you wanted to.
And I think for number three, I could just insert before park facilities, city park facility, but just doing that clarification language. And yeah, to get that better user data.
I think it would help, because I've been here 9 years and I don't know, I could find one city park.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I can think
And
of,
I like parks.
yeah, I mean, I can think of, the funny part for me is that I probably know where they are, but I may not remember the names.
Yeah.
For some people that will stick, and so it may be something that, including the names could be good too.
I think that's gonna be a big part in the end of this study is kind of that, our people, and that's, I think, part of where some of this initial discussion came from with the park dedication fees, and that our folks generally gearing more towards these awesome regional amenities that are in your city limits, in your backyard, versus city parks that have minimal maintenance and probably minimal users at this time. From what we know, the survey might say something different.
Yeah, I mean, I just, good questions. I mean, you could go on forever, of course, but I think, any thought about, would you like to see additional parks added to the city? Would you like to see an extension of these parks? Importantly, would you be willing to see a modest increase in your property taxes to maintain parks at the current level or enhance them, or to add new parks, right? I mean, that's kind of the core. What we needed to input on is what everybody says they want them until you ask them, will you spend another $200 a year?
Right, I do ask that question in some communities. I didn't put that in because I wasn't sure folks wanted to go there, but I can certainly add that because it's important. Or, there's other ways we've worded it that, make people think a little bit more about where the allocation is going on a general basis, because parks are expensive. I mean, not new equipment or even just maintaining, updating equipment. When you look at it on a grand scheme of a city budget and a percentage that it's even large communities with big parks and recreation departments, they get a decent budget. It might replace one basketball court, one new accessible swing set that people are looking to have incorporated into their parks and some maintenance on the swimming pool, you know, so parks are expensive, and it's another thing, residents all, but you know, we want this, we want this, we want this. Sometimes these open houses, when we can do different activities that we're like, here's the amount of tickets you have, that's your budget. You get to pick, and they see how quickly depleted it can go.
Yeah.
So those questions help kind of set that perspective when going into this process.
And to be able to say, you know, some of these things are possible, but they may not be possible all at
Absolutely.
once.
Yeah, and there's great Parks and Recreation funding out there if there's a time or somebody that could go after that as well. So,
Sure.
you know, that's always,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll add that funding question.
And it's gotta be property tax, right? Or assessments.
Yeah.
Or to the builder or developer, but I mean, usage fees do not work, I have to imagine. There is no way to collect.
Oh, yeah, and in truth, there's some limitations on what park dedication fees can actually be used for. Is that correct? Yeah. Like
Yeah,
for
park-
developers.
Yeah, park dedicated basically for the capital investment and can't use it for maintenance, those kind of
Yeah.
things. So it's more just the upfront capital costs and some replacements, but not maintenance.
Yeah.
I think what Dave is saying, more like if you use the park, you have to pay a fee. Is that what you're getting at? More?
No, I mean, I think largely parks have tried that, it doesn't work. I mean, clearly,
Right.
you know, I think Murphy used to try to charge.
Right.
and it was-
Yeah.
It's not gonna work on a city park.
Right.
I can't imagine.
No.
No.
And I mean, I don't know what you do. I mean, if you know, clearly a neighborhood looking to attract young families is very high propensity to use that park, right? You try to plop a park somewhere on that map over there in the middle of nowhere. I mean, who's gonna pay for it except for the city? Should they?
I think part of it's an educational part as far as that there are 4 parks and
Mhm.
I have to write down the name every once in a while because I don't know that they're out there.
Sure.
And I think that people should know that these are city parks. These parks don't belong to just to those respective neighborhoods.
Okay.
Because people may think, well, the Creekwood Park belongs to the Creekwood Commission. And so we have an idea that, you know, this is the city, this belongs to everybody.
Mhm.
And I think too, one of the things is, of course, taking care of these parks. We've had those summer meetings at all the different parks.
Mhm.
And I
Yep.
remember the one that we had at Scottview. And there was a baseball diamond that was right next to where we were all sitting. And it was in rough shape, it had a lot of weeds and everything.
Mhm.
And I think somebody was saying, gee, we want to have a softball tournament there.
Sure.
And so they wanted to, say, hey, we can get out here and we'll do some weeds and stuff.
Mhm.
So I think it's just to maintain what we've got. So that people can use it
Mhm.
on demand. And like, so if they have a park and it's got it had a nice baseball diamond, had a good backstop, and had some bases out there. And if, you know, if some people who knew that there was a park there, they could have a family picnic out there and play ball and stuff like that. So this is, we need to kind of educate our own citizens.
Sure.
That we have these parks because all these other parks, Cleary Lake is drowning everybody out.
Right.
And all these other, and so I think that, you know, let people know that we have these 4 parks.
Mhm.
And then as we're informing people about that, keep in mind that we need to make sure we're
Sure.
keeping those in good shape
Sure.
so people can use them.
And if you all as the commission, if you find, I think we could make the angle of the survey more focused on that. I mean, we can keep some of these questions, but gearing more towards the existing park with some questions about the finances of if they have interest in adding one, or if they feel that that would be an asset to the city, or yeah, is it better to focus resources on the existing parks instead of, I don't think adding more is, again, it would be developer driven likely with fees in lieu of giving the land. We've talked about incorporating that into the code before, or some of that is with the conservation, the different subdivision regulations. But again, the outcomes of that could also adjust ordinances too for future development. So,
Sure.
yeah,
Well, and we're gonna be thinking too in terms, coming up in the next few years about, the 2050 comprehensive
Mhm.
plan and parks do factor into that.
I do, yeah.
So this feels like really good timing for us to be gathering some of that information. For the purposes that have been outlined, plus thinking about that. And I think, mentally earmarked, there are some ideas about where another park might work.
Yeah.
In the context of development that, maybe 10, 20 years out or whatever, from recollections of discussions at previous meetings, but, from that perspective, it just feels like really good timing from my perspective.
No, I completely agree. So, I mean, I can take all this feedback and update. Is there any other thoughts and comments, questions?
Is there any traction of getting park sponsorship or, people adopt the highway, which always is interesting to me, but I think I would be more willing to adopt a park or a neighborhood adopt a park or at least support it. We don't currently live in near one except for Cleary, but we used to, and I certainly would welcome neighborhood sponsorship to improve it, especially when the kids are younger and we're there every day. I just don't know if there's any, something similar to parks as they do for other things.
Sure. If there's people willing to champion it, I don't know if the city would stand in the way, probably not. In terms of like sponsorship for maintenance, I typically see in Parkland, the sponsorship is donation of land usually, or they kind of are the initial. Yeah, but we're gonna give the city this many acres, you're gonna name the park after us.
Sure.
Type thing. So, but I've not seen that in a maintenance agreement. Have you, or,
I've seen the adopted parks, those things are kind of hit and miss. Sometimes you can get a real gung ho neighborhood that's there that really absorbs that purpose. Sometimes sometimes you can ask, and unless somebody's willing to really be the champion, it's a tough bid.
Yeah,
And but maybe to the point of the survey, maybe there could be an open-ended question that say, do you know how to get involved in parks, or do you know,
or would you have interest?
would you have interest? I don't know how you gauge that desire. But maybe that would just start that conversation, and until you get somebody willing to do it. Or I've seen even as some small donation of park benches with names on them. Those are simpler, and they donated after my mother passed away, who used to like to walk here, and something, they put their name on the plaque. But the bench is bulletproof. You put it on a concrete pad. It's steel. It's not. It requires no maintenance, and it's a 25-year amenity that you don't have to pay for.
Right.
So that's enough. So these small bits can be really meaningful. So
For sure.
I mean, the city doesn't have a mechanism to accept land as a donation for a park, do they?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they can.
But I mean, where they would get a charitable donation for doing so?
Well, okay, so Claire, you correct me if I'm wrong, but so if the city accepts a donation in property, you would have to typically accept it by resolution. If we defer to the city attorney, of course, but if there's a quid pro quo in terms of a name or something like that, well, then some of the donation gets a little fuzzy. But let's just say it truly is a donation to the city. I don't know what the tax implications are, but I would think they could do some kind of.
It's probably more market value.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, a swamp. I mean, how they come to those values is one thing, but if it's a land that the city can actually use, and the city would have to evaluate that ask and say, is this of value to the city? Washington County, and maybe you saw this in working in Washington County. They had a resident in the north end of the county that wanted to donate, I think it was a couple hundred acres to the county park system, and the county had to turn them down. They said, look, we can't afford to maintain this or undertake this thing. So it's all what happens.
All right, so I'm all for parks, so I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but the
Still farm.
so the way that I look at it is if you're not within walking distance of the park. So yeah, I have 4 young kids. We go to parks all the time in the summertime. We go to Lake. Lakeville's got really nice parks. It's one of those things, if I gotta get in the car to drive to the park, we're gonna go to a nice park. So it's like, Claire said how expensive all the equipment is and stuff. And my thing is, it's fine to spend the money, but we gotta make sure people are actually use the parks. And like I said, you go to parks all the time in the summer. It's just, we drive to Lakeville. And we just kind of have to keep that in mind where if we're, if we kind of just do what we have now, I'm still probably gonna drive to Lakeville, it's pretty small town, the parks are pretty. It's.
Well, they're low-key neighborhood parks.
Right,
Yep.
and like I said, if you're within walking distance, it's fine. But, we kind of gotta, is there enough kids within walking distance of these parks to make it worthwhile? I don't know. And I'm all for it if there is, it's just, we gotta make sure they're gonna get used if we spend a lot of money to update them.
The alternative concept, I mean, that's, makes a lot of sense. But what's also interesting that if you were to say to those 4 neighborhoods, hey, we're gonna get rid of these parks.
Right, would they,
Because you would have, it would be a debacle, right?
right,
There could
So-
be some mire.
So people use parks for the kids,
Right.
but they're also serve a lot of other values for those neighborhoods and whatever those things are. But it's interesting how many uses those things check box.
I think it's been smart for the city council to have the different gatherings for citizen input at those locations. Because it's a reminder, these are good, these are venues that anyone can take advantage of. And sometimes I think we forget in the context of, and Lakeville does have really great parks, and Cleary and Murphy Hanrahan are wonderful. So I think sometimes it's just out of sight, out of mind, and doing things like engaging people in those locations, I think does a lot to help out with that. And maybe there are some other things. Maybe even the survey itself will build a little bit of awareness about those parks too. So any other thoughts, questions at this time? Okay. Staff, are we looking for a motion?
No, I have the edits. I don't think I need one. I'll come back, the February meeting with a revised survey from your comments. I really appreciate them. I think that, it'll be a better survey because of it. So thank you for it.
From the bottom of the survey, if you wish to donate 100 lands, 100 acres of land to this park, we will entertain the offer.
With the escrow fund for maintenance.
For maintenance.
100 years. We'll consider it.
All right. Well, that was our last item on the agenda. With there being no other business before us, may I get a motion to adjourn tonight's planning commission meeting?
I move that we adjourn the meeting tonight.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned for the evening. Have a good night.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you so much. It is.
I know how to party.
Yeah, look at,